Good evening, everyone. We'll commence the meeting with the prayer. May we, the councillors of Ku-ring-gai, always be aware that decisions we make affect the daily lives of those we represent. May we make these decisions with knowledge and goodwill, respecting the views of others, and may we show ourselves worthy to follow in the footsteps of those who have protected the special qualities of Ku-ring-gai for over 100 years. Amen. On behalf of Council, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land and pay tribute to Elders past and present. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ku-ring-gai Council February meeting, which is our first scheduled meeting for 2021. Due to the COVID situation, this council meeting will be held remotely. Before I begin the meeting, I will outline a few points regarding this evening's proceedings. During the meeting, councillors will appear on screen. Staff will only appear on screen if questions are directed to them by the council. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed on the council website at www.krg.nsw.gov.au/live stream. The webcast of the meeting will remain on the website. The live stream will commence once the Mayor is seated and will cease if Council goes into a confidential session where the public and the press are excluded, pursuant to Section 10A of the Local Government Act. Council meetings will remain open to the public online, but speakers now address the Council through the monthly public forums and not at Council meetings. Again, due to the COVID-19 situation, the public forum preceding this Council meeting did not occur as normal. However, the public were encouraged to send in video, audio, or written submissions, and those were received and sent to councillors. For more information about addressing Council during COVID-19, please visit our website at www.krg.nsw.gov.au. All present tonight must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. Councillors and Council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to any item of business that is the subject of the meeting agenda this evening. I will now call for any apologies from councillors. It seems everyone is here, I think. General Manager, are there any staff apologies?
There are none, Madam Mayor.
Councillors, are there any declarations of interest on agenda items? Councillor Shatter.
Yes, Madam Mayor. GB11, site-specific DCP. I sit on the planning panel. So I'd like to remove myself for that particular item.
Thank you very much. Are there any others? Councillor Smith.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll be removing myself in regarding that GB item also.
Thank you very much. Any others? No. General Manager, are there any staff declarations?
Madam Mayor and Councillors, Mr Fabro has a declaration in relation to GB12.
Yes, Mayor and Councillors, I'd like to declare a non-significant and non-pecuniary interest regarding item GB12, Heritage Reference Committee minutes, as I have a relative that resides in Powell Street, Killara, and I'll not be present for this item.
Thank you. If that's all, we'll now move on. General Manager, to documents circulated to councillors.
Madam Mayor and Councillors, you've been sent this, but just the Greens contain the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on 5 February.
Thank you. General Manager, would you also please list the materials to be considered in closed meeting?
Madam Mayor and Councillors, no reports, but attachment 2 in relation to GB14, St Ives Indoor Sports Centre Heads of Agreement.
Thank you. Councillors, I seek a motion that piece of confidential material remain in closed session. Moved Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Greenfield. All those in favour? That is unanimous. We move to confirmation of the minutes, and I seek a motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 8th of December 2020. Moved Councillor Greenfield, seconded Councillor Clark. All those in favour? That is unanimous. We also have in the Greens the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Council held on the 5th of February 2021. I seek a motion for confirmation of those minutes. Moved Councillor Greenfield, seconded Councillor Chatto. All those in favour? Councillor Kay, have you got your hand up there? Sorry, I can't see.
No, I don't have my hand up.
Okay, who else doesn't have their hand up? Councillor Spencer and Councillor Nye.
Yeah, my hand's not up.
Okay, so those in favour are Councillor Chatto, Councillor Smith, Councillor Greenfield, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Clark, Councillor Pettit, Councillor Anderson. Against is Councillor Spencer, Councillor Nye, Councillor Kay. That is carried.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
If someone didn't attend the meeting, how can they vote on whether the minutes were accurate or not?
I might refer that to the General Manager. Not all those who voted against it weren't present, I believe. But
I understand, but I'm just asking a question.
General Manager.
Madam Mayor and councillors, councillors that aren't at a particular meeting still have the opportunity to vote on minutes. That's the same as, for instance, tonight Traffic Committee, where there's only a couple of councillors present, but all councillors are entitled to vote on the accuracy of those minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We now move to minutes from the Mayor, and there is one, MM1, 2021 Australia Day Honours and Citizen of the Year Awards. I am pleased to inform you that 7 Ku-ring-gai citizens, through their outstanding achievements and services to the community, have been awarded 2021 Australia Day Honours. We are very proud to have these dedicated and talented Australians as members of the Ku-ring-gai community. I would like to read to you the names of these special Ku-ring-gai citizens, and on behalf of Council, congratulate them on their excellent contributions to Australian society. Wendy Carver, OAM of St Ives for services to community mental health. Mark Ginsberg, OAM of Linfield for service to the Jewish community and to music. Dr. Stephen Edwin Judd, AM of Roseville for significant service to older persons living with dementia. Janet Dorothy Neeshaw, OAM of Pymble for service to the performing arts and to the community. Professor Robert Reddle, AO of St Ives for distinguished service to biomedical research in the field of adult and childhood cancer and genetics and to tertiary education. Professor Marcus Joachim Siebel, AM of Kalara for significant service to medical research and to endocrinology. Bexon Wang, OAM of Wahroonga for service to veterans of the Korean War. I also congratulate Ku-ring-gai Citizen of the Year winners for 2021. Citizen of the Year, Michelle Key. Young Citizen of the Year, Edward Giles. Young Environmental Citizen of the Year, Ella DeMoro. Environmental Citizen of the Year, Plant Rescue Ku-ring-gai. Mayor's Award for Outstanding Service by a Community Organisation, Lifeline, Harbour to Hawkesbury, Christmas Hamper Appeal. Mayor's Award for Outstanding Service by a Community Organisation, Kissing Point Sports Club. On behalf of Council, I congratulate all these award winners on their outstanding achievements. Ku-ring-gai should be proud that it has citizens being recognised at the highest level for their selfless dedication, commitment and contribution to local, national and international communities. Accordingly, I move that Council acknowledge the outstanding contribution made by these recipients of 2021 Australia Day Honours to the Ku-ring-gai community and to the wellbeing of our society. And B, that the Mayor write to the recipients on behalf of Council to congratulate them on receiving their award, including a copy of this mayoral minute. I would like to invite any of the councillors who wish to make any comments. I might just say myself that there are several names there that received Australia Day honours that would be familiar to a number of councillors. Wendy Carver, of course, who leads Lifeline here at Gordon and who has done so for many, many years, not only helping the mental health of our local residents, but across the whole Hawkesbury and North Shore areas. Also, Dr. Stephen Judd might be well known for his work for the hospital at Wahroonga that has indeed become very well known for its specialist care of those in the last stages of their life. Janet Neeshaw, of course, has been for many, many years extremely actively involved in St John's Church at Gordon, and of course with the singing group that we've enjoyed there on many occasions, the Cathedral Singers. So again, my sincere congratulations to all those people and councillors who were able to join us for the Australia Day ceremony this year. Would have been able to see our local Ku-ring-gai Citizens of the Year and the wonderful, hear about the wonderful work that they do in our community. And special comment, I'm sure, would be for Ella DeMorrow, who at such a very, very young age has made a big impact in her local community. So well done, Ella, and to all those recipients. If there's no further comments, I will put that mayoral minute. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move to petitions, and there is one in the agenda, PT1, petition to remove the pine tree and replace it with a smaller, safer tree at the front of 212 to 216 Mona Vale Road, St Ives. Would somebody like to move that petition? Councillor Kay.
Okay, I'd like to move the petition be received with the 31 signatures and referred to the appropriate officer of council for attention.
Would you care to read the prayer for the petition?
Oh, sorry. Okay. So it is petition to remove the pine tree. Then we've got to whom it may concern, and that part, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. To whom it may concern and to the strata manager and building manager, we, the underlined signatures, believe that the pine tree now at the front of our building is a dangerous tree and should be replaced with a smaller, safer tree. We believe that the assessment by the tree arborist that the tree is not dangerous is incorrect, with 31 signatures.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. So everybody knows what the petition is. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded Councillor Smith. Any comments on that? No, I will put that petition as moved by Councillor Kay. All those in favour? That is unanimous. We move now to recommendations from Committee RC1, minutes of the Ku-ring-gai Traffic Committee held on November 9th, 2020. Is there a mover? Mover, Councillor Kelly. What are you carrying, Councillor Kelly?
That the minutes of the Traffic Committee meeting held on 9th of November 2020 be received and noted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded, Councillor Spencer. I do have one question, if that's appropriate at this stage, for the chair and the deputy chair with regard to these minutes. There was an issue that the committee decided not to proceed with in relation to Lyle Avenue, Linfield, KTC 16. I note that it had the support of Transport for New South Wales, but not the representative attending for the member for Davidson, nor the chairperson. Could I just have an explanation on the reasons for not supporting that?
Perhaps Director Bonasif could be in a better position to assist, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe it was related to the street being a small cul-de-sac, and it was to allow for additional parking for residents within that street or the surrounding streets. And I think that was stipulated by the member for Davidson at the time. So his objection was based around losing parking.
And how did this come to council in the first place?
It was, through Madam Mayor, it was a request that's come through from the residents directly impacted by the proposed change. I believe it was by number 2 Lowell Avenue.
So they were requesting this change?
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
And it was supported by Transport for New South Wales as well. And I presume it was also supported by the staff?
Madam Mayor, that is correct. The recommendation was supported by the staff. The police, I believe, at the last traffic committee were an apology, and hence why there is no, they're not part of the resolution either for or against.
Thank you, Director. If that being the case, I'm concerned that this would be in abeyance for the residents who have requested it, and for the issue having the support of both the staff and the representative from Transport for New South Wales. So I would like to move that an amendment, unless the movers of the minutes there are happy to incorporate, that they be received and noted, except for KTC 16, that the council does not support that recommendation.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to accept your recommendation.
Thank you.
No objection at all.
All right, so you'll accept that as incorporation to your motion.
Yes.
The seconder, the mover, support that too?
Yes.
Thank you. That being the case, Councillor Spencer, did you want to speak any further on this matter?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. If I was going to say a few words. What I meant was not really a long speech. As the chair of the traffic committee, I take mostly recommendations from the members. So meaning, say for instance, this would be the state representative, and I take recommendation from the staff as well. And I weigh the arguments pro and against and so on. And unfortunately, police were not present and so on. So it was 1 for and 1 against, and I have to make my decision there. And my decision at the time was in favor of the member of, for Davidson's recommendation, because he put on a better argument. I think his argument was quite convincing. If Director Bonasif would care to comment. He was present, and the deputy chair was there as well. He was quite convincing with his argument at the time. I understand staff put up their recommendation based on technicalities and all those things, but Mr. Lane was very convincing with his arguments.
Understand. Director, would you like to make further comment?
No further comments from me, Madam Mayor, other than to say that the member for Davidson was quite passionate about his view on the matter.
The representative for the member.
Sorry, the representative.
That's right. That's right. He's the representative, and we do respect that, and we do call him the member for the representative for Davidson. But then again, the traffic committee, as with all other committees, they are committees, and they make recommendations to this council. So this council will make the final decision. And if this council decides to make any recommendations or changes to anything, I would, of course, support this council.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Kelly, did you want to add anything?
No, Madam Mayor, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That being the case, it's been incorporated, so we will move that motion. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to...
Actually, Madam Mayor, could I ask what prompted you, if I may, what prompted you to raise that issue?
In reading the minutes, I was concerned that this had been a request from a resident in my ward for a valid reason, and it did have the support of the staff experts in traffic here and also Transport for New South Wales. So that was the reason.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on now to general business, and I invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to have a site inspection. Councillor Greenfield. No, sorry. Anybody else? No, no inspections. I move now to invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that you wish to adopt in accordance with the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. GB1, minutes of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on 1st of October 2020. Officer's recommendation. Council receive and notes this report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded, Councillor Clark. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Greenfield.
GB2, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee extension of appointment external independent chair. Officer's recommendation.
That's seconded by Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB3, investment report as at 30th of November 2020. The officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Shatto. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB4, investment report as at 31st of December 2020. The officer's recommendation.
Seconded, Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB5, investment report as at 31st of January 2021. The officer's recommendation.
Seconded Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB6, analysis of land and environment court costs, second quarter 2020 to 2021. Officer's recommendation.
That is seconded by Councillor Chatto. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB7, 2020 to 2021 budget review, second quarter ended December 2020. Officer's recommendation.
Seconded Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB8, business approved under authority delegated to the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and General Manager for December-January recess period 2020-2021. Officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB9, 2021 National General Assembly of Local Government. Call for motions. Officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB10, progress status report, December 2020. Officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
I might leave GB11. GB12, Heritage Reference Committee meeting minutes, 22nd of October 2020. Officer's recommendation.
Sorry, GB12, did you say?
Yep.
Yes.
There's a conflict, isn't it?
Oh, Mr. Fabro?
You might want to skip this one and come back.
No, we can just check that the director is not present, General Manager.
Correct. Mr. Fabro just needs to leave the meeting.
Sorry.
Has he left? Yes, the director, the manager has left, so we can move forward with this.
GB12, Heritage Reference Committee meeting 22nd October 2020. Officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous. The manager can return. Thank you. Councillor Greenfield.
GB13, proposed heritage listing 207 Eastern Road, Wahroonga. Officer's recommendation.
Seconded Councillor Chatto. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB14, St Ives Indoor
Withdrawn.
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 Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Greenfield.
I'll leave GB11 and GB14. Thank you.
Okay.
Could we do GB11 while Councillor Smith and Councillor Chateau leave the chamber?
Well, that is the next item that we have to deal with. So that is exactly what will be happening. Councillor Smith and Councillor Chateau will be departing. And
can we do that now?
Yep.
We can do that now. This is site-specific DCP, Part 62, 64 to 66, Pacific Highway, Roseville, and
Can I move GB11?
Yes.
Officer's recommendation?
Yes, you may. Is there a seconder for that?
Can we withdraw? Can we debate this item?
This has been withdrawn.
Okay, right. Okay.
We are able to debate it now. So
yes.
I have a mover, Councillor Spencer, and is there a seconder for?
Oh, no, sorry, it's been withdrawn. So someone has to, Councillor Nine has withdrawn.
Yes, Councillor, any councillor can withdraw and any councillor can move a motion. So
okay.
we're now at the stage of debating it as on the agenda as the next agenda item. So, Councillor Spencer, do you want to withdraw from moving this?
I withdraw.
All right.
Councillor Nine wants to move.
Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move an expanded version of what the staff have recommended. I believe that it can be available on the screen.
Could I just clarify on something? I can see that Councillor Kay has got her hand up on the screen in the blue form. Thank you, Councillor Kay. I just wanted to check I hadn't overlooked you there. Councillor Nye, you've got something to come up on the screen there for us, have you?
Yes.
We'll just get that ready for councillors to see.
So points A, I will read it out and then we will see if someone wants to second this motion.
Thank you.
So points A, B and C are the same as what the staff have recommended. A, that council endorses for the purpose of public exhibition the amendments to the Ku-ring-gai Local Centres DCP to include site-specific controls to support the planning proposal for Part 62, 64 to 66 Pacific Highway, Roseville. B, that the draft site-specific DCP amendment be placed on public exhibition concurrently with the planning proposal for Part 62, 64 to 66 Pacific Highway, Roseville. C, that a report be brought back to council at the conclusion of the exhibition period for council to consider any submissions made. And then we've got 3 extra points here. D, that council acknowledges that part of the development at 62, 64 to 66 Pacific Highway assumes the divestment of 156.8 square metres of Roseville Town Centre community land. E, that council acknowledges that on page 58 of attachment A1 of GB19 of the OMC dated 22nd of October 2019, there appears to be a tentative price of $225,000 for the community land mentioned in point D above. Council also notes that there are members of the community who believe that $225,000 is not a satisfactory outcome for ratepayers, especially when considering that it results in a reduction of scarce community parking space, while also allowing the developer to support an extra 3 dwellings on the site. Point F, that to support a wider range of valuation methodologies and in seeking a better outcome for our ratepayers, council staff will review and propose changes to council's acquisition and divestment of land policy prior to any decision to sell the land mentioned in points D and E above. The final decision to sell this land, including the sale price, will be made by the elected councillors. So I'm looking for a seconder to this motion.
Councillor Spencer has seconded that. Councillor Nye, would you like to speak to that now?
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is pretty simple, and as context, I think we all know as councillors that sometimes we have budgetary constraints to deliver what we would like to deliver to our residents. Quite often the topic may be about footpaths, for example, and we have to justify to our residents why we can't deliver a certain footpath till 2025 or some other time. So anything that we can do to save money here or there, or perhaps increase the amount of funds that we get from funding sources such as divestments would go a long way towards meeting the needs of our residents. Now, in this particular case, a lot of residents have drawn attention to the proposed price of $225,000, which can be found in the public document listed in point E of the motion. And what this means is we lose a number of parking spaces in the Roseville Town Centre, a town centre which some argue is the best suburb in all of Australia, but also has a lot of constraint in terms of parking. Like Larkin Lane, especially at night, it's a bit of a nightmare. You can't find parking spots there. What the land that council may potentially sell to the developer does is it may also potentially increase their property from supporting 30 units to supporting 33 units. So a number of residents have pointed out that no matter how you look at it, whether it be to give up parking spaces or to give a developer the opportunity to develop 3 extra units, $225,000 seems a bit light. Some residents have commented that perhaps it should be double or triple, but that's not for us to determine. The issue we have here is council's current acquisition and divestment of land policy, which if you follow it strictly, and if you interpret it in a certain way, it limits the valuation of the land to a small parcel of land to whatever it's worth to adjoining properties or property owners. So it's not truly a market value of, the wider Roseville community. It doesn't really reflect the 225,000 doesn't really reflect the benefit that it gives to the residents who use the Roseville Town Centre, or the value of 3 apartments, which you could argue is the profits could be triple of that. So the proposal here is that for all of us here, as councillors who want to deliver the most that we can for our residents, that if and when this parcel of land does eventually come for sale, that we are in a position where we are able to assess the value of the land, not just based on what the acquisition and divestment of land policy said at a certain point in time, but that we can look at the policy at a more broad sort of overarching perspective and decide whether there may be cases where actually a parcel of land may be worth a bit more than what is just proposed. I'm not the valuations expert here, but I know a lot of residents have this concern, and I think it is a respectful and responsible thing for each of us as councillors to make sure that if this land eventually does get sold, that we do get the most money as possible so that we can deliver other services. So I would encourage other councillors to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer is seconded. Do you wish to speak?
No, I wish to reserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few questions through you to the relevant officer. So in part F of this amended motion, being put forward, it states that the last sentence, the final decision to sell this land will be made by the elected councillors. Question for you, Madam Mayor, to the relevant officer. Would have the sale of land had to gone through the councillors in a traditional sense, or would this be an exception?
Director Watson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's always the case that council itself has to make a specific decision about the sale of land. I don't necessarily agree with Councillor Nye's interpretation of the policy. It requires land to be valued on a highest and best use. What this report is about the DCP, and we're trying not to confuse the assessment of a number of DAs, some of which are in various states of appeal, and the former VPA to which Councillor Nye refers was the subject of a significantly higher offer in the order of 3 times the sum that Councillor Nye referred to, but that has also been withdrawn, bearing in mind that this DCP relates to a planning proposal and not the DA on which the basis on which council has considered a VPA. So I don't agree with the premise on which the assessment of the policy has been made, and we have certainly moved well beyond the 225 referred to by Councillor Nye in his motion, albeit it was correct at the time. His reference to acknowledging a particular sum at a particular point in time is correct, but we're certainly now talking about a figure based on a DA rather than additional yield that might come under a planning proposal of has a 7 in front of it rather than a 2.
Thank you. Another question, Madam Mayor, sorry, through you to the relevant officer. So in part F, the motion states that council staff will review and propose changes to council's acquisition and investment of land policy. So I suppose you've kind of already addressed that you didn't necessarily agree with his assessment, but what proposals might you think of that are currently challenges or problems with this policy that staff might be addressing?
Through you, sorry, Madam Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor. It's my recollection that that policy has been reviewed in the life of this council. There was some very minor changes to the quantum on which you get multiple valuations. More than happy to get another valuation in this case if that's what councillors require. But the only time that I can recall we have sold land to an adjoining owner was not by special deal with the adjoining owner, was the land in Kosher Lane, which we took to public auction. So the policy does not compel council to sell even small parcels to adjoining owner. And like I say, we're talking about a figure not quite 3 times, but almost 3 times bigger than the figure that has been put on the table tonight.
Thank you. I'll lower my hand for now.
Director, could I ask, is any of the wording in Councillor Nye's motion therefore problematic in terms of other DAs on hand and the VPAs and so forth? Sorry, Director, you're on mute.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I wouldn't mind having another look at the words. Tonight it's the first time I've seen them, so.
Yes, we'll get those back up on the screen.
I mean, like I say, because of the complexity of the issue, multiple DAs, multiple VPAs, court actions, we have, as they say, been trying to keep appropriate walls between my staff who are dealing only with the VPA and the DCP matters, and any consideration at all in relation to the DAs that are on foot. So we're talking about part E or F, did you say, Madam Mayor?
Well, the 3 additional clauses. Is it 3 or 2? Sorry.
Yep, D, E and F.
D, E and F. Yes, D, E and F.
D is strictly speaking correct, but approving a DCP for exhibition does not compel council to sell the land at any price at any stage to anybody. So I wouldn't have thought it was necessary per se. Again, part E at the time, being October 2019, was correct. But as I've said, there's a completely different figure on the table. The whole VPA has been withdrawn. And we're talking about a DCP, which relates to a planning proposal, which allows potentially further yield than the 3 dwellings referred there. So I would say E is irrelevant to a DCP. And F, I mean, highest and best use is highest and best use, and council, regardless of what evaluation comes in at, can decide, irrespective of that valuation, not to sell a piece of land. So I can review the policy, quite happy to do that if that's what councillors want. But the final decision, irrespective of price, always sits with the councillors. So I don't know that F is necessarily required either, Madam Mayor. They're not something I necessarily object to.
Councillor Nye, may I ask, was F in the element of that says the final decision would be made by the elected councillors, just really stating a fact as reassurance to the community, because as the director has said, that is automatically always the case. Was your intention just to reiterate what already happens?
Yes, Madam Mayor, quite often there may be extra words here which are put here to assure members of the public of what the usual process is, similar to point C really, which if we were to follow point common process would be done anyway. So quite often we do add additional words to some of these points here just to assure members of the public that certain steps will be taken, to not worry that things are under control. And just as another note, I didn't know that there was a new offer with a 7 in front. It's not publicly available from what I can tell, but all of these words here in points D, E and F are just to assure members of the public that we as councillors do have their interests in heart, even on sort of related but not directly connected topics.
Councillor Nye, you still feel that you want to push on with this wording, even though the director has raised issues about mixing in elements that aren't strictly related to DCPs, etc.?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm comfortable with mixing in an additional topic that, although it's not strictly the DCP, has very strong linkage to the overall process or overall development of what's going to happen at this piece of land.
May I, following that answer, just double check with the General Manager, through him, the corporate lawyer, whether there's any governance issues in relation to this?
Mr. Taylor.
Madam Mayor and councillors, beyond the comments that have already been made by Director Watson, I don't think there's any other issues the council would need to take great account of.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are there any further speakers on this item? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question through you to the relevant officer. I just wanted to confirm that I believe that it was stated by Director Watson that Council has already redone our acquisition and investment of land policy in our current term. I just want to confirm that that is the case.
Not so long ago, I think, Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is the case, but that doesn't mean council can't review a policy at any particular time it wants. It doesn't actually have to make changes. It can review it and decide they like it the way it is. So I'm not particularly put out by that that element, no.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question through you to Councillor Nye. Councillor Nye, given we've already redone this policy within our current term, do you still see the need to redo this policy once again?
So thank you, Councillor Clark. I think it's okay for council staff to review the policy once again. They may potentially come up with some amendments, or they may decide, just as Director Watson said, to potentially say, look, there are no further recommendations to make. The wording of what I've provided here under point F leaves both of those options open, but I think it's worth just having a quick look at it to decide whether or not the policy remains fit for purpose. And just noting that there are other policies out there which we review from time to time as circumstances change. So it's the same with this. It's not a very long policy. It's only 14 pages. Director Watson, I'm sure, will be able to read it and consider especially some of the specific clauses like, 10.4, for example, and decide whether or not, or some of the other clauses, and decide whether or not there needs to be any amendments. And he's completely free to say no change if that's what he decides is something that is most fit for purpose.
Thank you, Councillor Nye. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might speak briefly, Madam Mayor. Sorry.
Yes,
thank you. I'd like to speak against this motion. So I believe, especially with point F, this motion regarding the change of policy, it's effectively presumptive in its wording. It's presumptive in the wording of there being a problem with it. Specifically, when I look at it saying council staff will review and propose changes, makes an implication that changes are required to the policy. So therefore, it's presumptive that there are challenges with the policy which council's already reviewed in its current term. So I think that it's a complete waste of time and money. Every single decision we make our staff do actually costs man hours. It costs ratepayers dollars. To make them review a policy they've already reviewed is a complete waste of time, and it seems like a classical government waste. And so I wouldn't support the motion just on that wording. Furthermore, I believe the last point in point F again is completely unnecessary. It's both needless and confusing. And in my mind, it just reads as councillor grandstanding, not trying to ease the mind of residents. It more reads to me like a councillor putting forward their position saying, look, I was the person who made it come forward, trying to take advantage of individuals who don't necessarily understand council processes. That would have happened anyways. So on that point, I wouldn't support this motion. And I don't believe we should allow an individual councillor to take merit for what is a standard council system. Once again, going back to Director Watson's points of these being two separate issues, I really think we need to be careful not to confuse separate parts. And the desire to introduce these monetary figures into the DCP, which is a planning proposal, is unnecessary and confusing and could potentially complicate council matters. And of course, as has been pointed out, we are well beyond the $225,000 figure that has been put forward within the motion within point E. So I think then it's effectively, whilst technically, yes, at 2019, we're looking at that figure, it's not truthful now to residents to be putting forward that figure in 2021, especially now when we've had it tabled in this meeting, that figure is no longer relevant. To then still put that forward, I think is effectively misleading residents. So I wouldn't support that part of the motion. Furthermore, I don't believe we should be putting debate within a motion resolution. The last part of point E, when it starts talking about that there are members of the community who believe that 225,000 is not appropriate, that's just debate. I don't believe it should go into a motion resolution. So for all of these points, I would support the original motion of parts A, B, and C, probably even D, that E and F especially, I feel are completely unnecessary, confusing, grandstanding, and will lead to just wasted ratepayer dollars. So I won't support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, you know, sometimes we can get left with a situation in limbo. You're suggesting that you support the officer's recommendation and one, yes, potentially one extra clause on top of that. Are you wishing to move that as an amendment?
Yeah, I'll move it as an amendment. I'll move the officer's recommendation as an amendment.
With the extra clause or just as is?
Just as is, it's parts A, B, C.
Okay. Is there a second for that? Councillor Greenfield. Now, therefore, being an amendment on the floor, we have to move to only debating the amendment. So, Councillor Clark, you may briefly want to speak to your amendment.
Just to briefly speak to it, I'm quite supportive of the site-specific DCP for this land. I think that most councillors are, from telling how the debate has gone previously. It really just comes down to the specifics of the motion, and I'm much more comfortable with the motion as per the officer's recommendation that I'm putting forward now. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Greenfield has seconded. Do you wish to speak to Councillor Clark's amendment?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I reserve my right.
Thank you. I'll just briefly add myself that, you know, I can see the intent of Councillor Nye to move this forward, but it does worry me mixing things up that aren't specifically what we're...
Sorry, point of order.
Yes, Councillor Spencer.
Madam Mayor, you're supposed to speak to the present one, not the previous one. Thank you.
Well, I am speaking to the present one by saying that I'm supporting the amendment because I don't think we should be mixing things up that aren't specifically related to the DCP.
But last time we had similar arguments and you didn't allow us to talk about the previous one, you remember?
No, I think that was a different circumstance. Thank you, Councillor Spencer. I'm also concerned that this is much clearer and not mixing in any figures that aren't appropriate in 2021. Therefore, I'm more comfortable with supporting the officer's recommendation that Councillor Clark has put forward. Are there any further speakers on this matter? If not, I'll ask Councillor Clark if, sorry, Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to briefly speak against this amendment.
Yep.
So basically, I know sometimes there are multiple topics involved in conversations such as this, but in my short experience, 3 years so far as a councillor, I've seen quite often times when we tell residents, this is not what this vote is about, this is not what this vote is about, this is not what this vote is about. And then 6 months later, we say, oh, you had the opportunity to talk about this, but that was 4 months ago. So yes, quite often you can be very legalese and strict about saying this is the specific topic of a particular motion. But the problem is, and the experience that some residents end up going through is that they get they feel like they've been cheated out of the opportunity to speak at the right time from not fully understanding the process. Now, specifically here about as magical number 7, which sounds fantastic, by the way, that's not a publicly available piece of information. It was not publicly available until this council meeting when it was made available through this video. So at the end of the day, our residents will only act upon what information is made available to them at that point in time. So I do believe that it is important for our residents' benefit to add extra assurances on top of what is presented here in A, B, C, and D. I mean, A, B, C, and D are all good things, but I know a lot of residents who would like to see a bit more just to give them assurance that our council is sane. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nye. If there's no further speakers on this, I'll put the amendment, Councillor Clark's amendment. All those in favour? That is Councillors Greenfield, Clark, Anderson. Against? Councillors Spencer, Nye, Kay, Pettit. That is lost. We resume debate on the main motion.
I voted against that, Madam Mayor, but you didn't mention my name.
Sorry, and Councillor Kelly.
Just for the sake of the record.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Appreciate that clarification. That will be recorded duly in the minutes. Councillors, we resume debate now. Are there any further speakers on this matter? If not, Councillor Nye, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So what we propose here is that we just have a few additional safeguards here, things that council staff can do that won't cost them a lot of time or money. I mean, if I had to talk about wasted money on council, I'd point to other things like bills that kill care, right? But in general, it's not a lot of time, it's not a lot of money, it won't add a lot of additional process to the whole thing. It actually draws out this newer figure starting in the 7s out into the public domain, which I think is fantastic. But at the end of the day, our residents just want to have confidence that we as councillors are looking after the interests of all ratepayers. So I believe that it is important that we support this motion in full A, B, C, D, E, and F. Thank you very much.
Councillors, I will put the motion, Councillor Nye's motion. All those in favour? That is Councillors Spencer, Nye, Kay, Pettit, Anderson. Against? Councillors Greenfield, Kelly, Clark. Carried. Thank you. We will now get the other 2 councillors back into the meeting. We'll just pause a moment while they are brought back in. Councillor Chateau and Councillor Smith have returned to the meeting. So we now move forward with GB 14, St Ives Indoor Sports Centre Heads of Agreement. That was withdrawn. Is there a mover? Councillor Smith.
Sorry, one second. I'm just trying to get my screen back on. It just did crazy things with my screen just then.
That's all right. We can see you and hear you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I would like to move a motion.
Yes. And
on GB 14.
And the wording?
I would like A, that council accepts the risks, costs and benefits associated with the project and draft heads of agreements as discussed in the report and accompanying legal advice. And 1, council resolves to endorse the heads of agreement. 2, the budget for the project be increased by 2.2 million from 17.4 million to 19.6 million. And 3, loan borrowing for the project to be increased from 11.3 million to 13.5 million. B, that council endorses the concept design as presented and attached to this report for documentation of a development application, DA, to be lodged before the end of the financial year.
Thank you. Do the staff have the wording for that, or we just wait until that's all typed up?
They don't, they'll be typing that up.
They're typing that up. We might just wait till that's on the screen then for the other councillors to see. Councillor Smith, there is a section highlighted in yellow there, but you didn't mention that. Do you want that in or out?
I'll leave that out at the moment, thank you.
All right. Thank you. So that's on the screen. Councillor Kay, I did see your hand raised there. Are you wishing to second this or something else?
No, I've got an amendment, so
okay,
just letting you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. So if councillors have seen Councillor Smith's wording there for his motion, I now seek a seconder for that motion. Seconded by Councillor Greenfield. Thank you. Councillor Smith, do you wish to speak to your motion now?
Madam Mayor, I might reserve that at the moment, thank you.
All right. Councillor Greenfield is seconded. Do you wish to speak to this?
No, I'll reserve my right at this time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Therefore, I think Councillor Kay wants to move an amendment now. Is that correct, Councillor Kay?
Yes, that is correct. So I suppose if the governance team, they have a copy of the amendment, so if they could put it up on the screen.
Thank you. Well, let's wait for that to come up.
And I'm happy to read it.
Thank you. Thank you. And Councillor Kay, if you would read that, that would be helpful, I'm sure.
Okay, so just bear in mind the first top part of the section. So, sorry, going back up to the recommendation that A, 1, 2 and 3 are very similar in relation to Councillor Smith's. So it's an extension of the original recommendation. Okay, but I'm happy to read through that regardless.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, so it is, if that council accepts the risks, costs and benefits associated with the project and drafts heads of agreement, and 1, council resolves to endorse the heads of agreement, 2, the budget for the project be increased to 2.2 million from 17.4 million to 19.6 million, and 3, loan borrowings for the project be increased from 11.3 million to 13.5 million, and I'm happy to leave to be repaid from asset sales in brackets. And I've got B, that council endorses the concept design as presented and attached to this report for documentation of a development application. C, so these are my additions. So C, that council immediately instructs its architects to prepare and lodge the DA for the project, with the DA to be lodged no later than the 1st of June 2021. D, that councillors be advised when the DA is lodged and that council staff do all things necessary to ensure that the planning approvals be obtained as soon as possible and by no later than June 2022. E, that the heads of agreement be immediately executed and delivered upon by council, including but not limited to proceeding forthwith to negotiate and enter into legally binding agreements as contemplated by the heads of agreement, including 1, a project deed, and 2, a licensing agreement. F, that until further resolution, a report to council be made of each subsequent council meeting of progress with respect to the finalisation of the above steps and the progress of the project generally, with councillors be advised between council meetings of the achievement of any milestones in the project. G, that council staff at all times be cognisant that the retentions by council of the 3.5 mil Office of Sport grant is dependent on being able to demonstrate that council has expeditiously executed the above steps and progressed construction of the project.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Everybody has seen that and heard it read. Is there a seconder for that amendment? No seconder, that lapses. Therefore, we return to the motion that Councillor Smith has.
Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Shadow.
I have a foreshadowed amendment.
Well, now it doesn't need to be foreshadowed because the amendment has gone, so we can have another amendment. Councillor Shadow.
I'd just like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Shadow has, well, actually, I think the officer's recommendation was to have us decide what to do with the matter. General Manager.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Councillors, you're correct. There is no amendment on the table, so Councillor Shadow can move an amendment, but the words as printed in the officer's recommendation need to be amended so that there's a definitive decision either way to sign the heads of agreement or not to sign the heads of agreement.
It's true. So instead of A, if, it would be that council accepts the risks, etc.
I can second that.
Right.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Clark, have you got a...
So I just want to say to Councillor that that's effectively Councillor Smith's motion that we currently have on the table.
With the exception of I'm including to be repaid from asset sales. And that, I think that's important.
Madam Mayor and Councillors, that is a distinct difference.
Yes, that is a distinct difference. And the other difference is in B, I've taken up to be lodged before the end of the financial year. And I'd like to ask the question to staff if that's a viable. I can understand that that's something people would want to, but at the end of the financial year, I know that these development applications take a long time to get going. I just don't wonder if that is feasible.
Madam Mayor and Councillors, perhaps Director Mysick and or Director Watson.
Directors?
Through you, Madam Mayor. At this point in time, we anticipate being able to lodge that application prior to the end of the financial year. Beyond that point, the matter is in the lap of Director Mysick and his independent planning processes.
Right, so it could be lodged before the end of the financial year.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Chateau. Yes.
All right. I think probably what we need to do is make sure that we have the correct wording that Councillor Chateau wants up on the screen for everybody to see, so that we can make sure we all understand the differences.
I'm happy to include to be lodged before the end of the financial year, as that is apparently feasible.
Yes, okay.
So the main difference is to be repaid from asset sales.
Okay. Thank you. So that has just been added there on the end of B. It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Chateau, do you wish to speak to this now?
No, I think it's a very exciting project. I realise that this is only a heads of agreement at this stage, and we have a lot more decisions to make as time goes on. But I really think basketball deserves to have this basketball in on the Upper North Shore. Having a look at a letter today that we received from Joel Hyman, who points out they're having some difficulties currently with the education department and some building that has been apparently has some issues with it, but I'm sure that they are small issues. And it's, you know, I really feel that it's likely that some of the difficulties may be sorted out with the Department of Education before it becomes a council responsibility for the second building. I think we've talked about this a great deal in the past. I know it looks expensive, but the borrowings look feasible, and I'm optimistic about the asset sales to support the repayment.
Thank you, Councillor Shadow. Councillor Spencer, a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do applaud Councillor Chateau for moving this motion. It is such a privilege to be supporting her in seconding this motion. It is truly an opportunity for this council to move this forward. And I do agree with Councillor Chateau that it is a very exciting time for our council term moving forward with this project. This motion is really important. I've spoken with Joel Heeman as well today, and he just said to me, all we want is the basketball court. We want a place that we can play basketball at a cheaper rate. That's all we want. I've spoken to Director Watson and the General Manager several times about this, and truly, you know, we have the teacup loan available if we can move this forward. I've read through the legal advice. We've gone through all those things several times. Each time we delay, it's another $5-6 million up. We should move ahead with this, and now's the opportunity. And I truly thank our director, and our general manager and this council for taking this step. And I hope that this council would support this motion and move this forward. Thank you.
I would just like to ask a question at this point. It seems to me now, with the revisions, that the amendment from Councillor Chateau is now very, very similar to Councillor Smith's, except for the asset sales issue. If I'm correct now, I don't have the two motions side by side.
Yes, that's correct.
Seems to be the only difference. I was wondering if I could ask Councillor Smith, is there a particular reason that he has a concern over that element, or whether the two motions are now so alike that they're acceptable to be incorporated into his motion? Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to incorporate that with my motion, and that was the reason I was going to leave that for further debate and to add that in any case. So I'm happy to support to bring that into my motion.
All right, so now the wording is going to be exactly the same. We revert to Councillor Smith's motion, and Councillor Greenfield, I will check with you as the seconder of that, if you're happy for that incorporation as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm happy with that incorporation.
Thank you. Councillor Kay, you're the next speaker.
Oh, I've got a couple of questions.
Yes.
So through
point of order. We are debating the amendment.
No, there is no amendment now. It's been incorporated.
No, it's incorporated.
The motion.
I'm sorry. How does that work? If the general manager could
yes,
clarify, please.
Madam Mayor and Councillors, Councillor Chateau's amendment, which was seconded by you, Councillor Spencer, had the difference in relation to funding from asset sales. Councillor Smith has now agreed to accept the wording from yourself and Councillor Chateau. So there is now only one motion on the floor.
Thank you. We continue with Councillor Kay's questions.
Okay, so my first question is just through the General Manager to the relevant Director, which I believe is probably Director Watson. If you could just briefly explain what happens tonight if we move forward on the heads of agreement. So just a brief process, if you don't mind, Director Watson. Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is no reason that the heads of agreement can't be signed tomorrow morning and sent to Department of Education for execution.
Okay, thank you, Director Watson. I do have another question, but this one is, I would believe, through the General Manager to Director Miosic. Okay, just for clarity, can you briefly explain why the DA process on major projects can take up to 12 months, please, Director Miosic?
Through Madam Mayor, I think the operative word is major. So major proposals involve a lot of work, a lot of internal and external referrals. It's a fairly complex process that's set out not only by council but also by the state government in terms of what they specify the planning process must be and what we must have regard to in terms of the heads of consideration. So yes, this proposal, were it to be lodged as a DA, would take substantially more time than a dwelling house, for instance, for obvious reasons, and for the reasons that I've alluded to as well. Is there any further question in relation to that?
Yeah, so maybe if you can be a little bit more specific with the process of who handles the DA Yep, thank you.
What would happen in this particular case would be, given the council would be the applicant, I assume, the application would be assessed by an independent planning consultant, which is the convention, and obviously for good reason. That independent planning consultant would finalise their report and would present that to the, I believe it would be the Sydney North Planning Panel for consideration and for determination. But as I said earlier on, prior to that happening, a fair amount of work would have to go into that report. Not only the appointment of an independent planning assessment officer, but also a number of different layers of consideration that are required. We're required to have regard to under our own LEPs, DCPs, and also state planning legislation.
Okay, thank you, Director Miosic. Now, I've got one more question from via the General Manager to Director Marshall. If I could?
Yes, Councillor Kay.
Okay, so Director Marshall, can you just confirm all the funding is ready to go? So are we able to draw on this tomorrow, for instance, as an example? Are we ready to go?
Director Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the TCOP loan is fully approved. So if Council wanted to borrow immediately, it'd just be a matter of completing the relevant documentation. But there's no barrier to us proceeding once Council resolves to do so.
Okay, thank you, Director Marshall.
Thank you, Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move an amendment to Councillor Smith's motion.
Yes.
It's in relation to Part 3, the to be repaid from asset sales. I'd like it to say to be repaid in part from asset sales. So what it implies is it's not the full amount is repaid from asset sales, but part of it at least is paid from asset sales. Can we show it on the screen?
We'll just get that ready.
Or actually, to be clear, let's say to be repaid at least in part from asset sales. And I'm happy to explain this if there is a seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Spencer. Councillor Knight, you can speak to your amendment now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I do feel there's general consensus from the majority of councillors here that the vast majority of the borrowings should be repaid from asset sales. However, we are in a situation, quite a unique situation right now, where interest rates are ridiculously low And we also have a state government which is willing to partially subsidize some of our borrowings as well. So we don't know, like in a different decade where interest rates may be 6%, 7%, 8%, whatever, 15%, yes, we would be in a big rush to repay from asset sales the full amount as soon as possible. But in the current economic climate where interest rates are so low, a lot of people out there have been asking local governments across Australia, why pay off that loan straight away? Why commit to paying it off with a particular funding source straight away? So I think I agree with the majority here that at least some of it should be from asset sales, but we also don't have the modelling finalised yet to know whether or not, like we definitely know that based on the current assumptions, the revenue that we get from this will be able to pay the interest on the loan. Whether or not we're able to pay off more than just the interest, but also some of the principal, that's not yet completely identified. We haven't identified a payback period yet. But I do believe that if we take a step back, we don't commit to it straight away. If we do some further analysis, we may find out further down the track that maybe we could pay half of it from asset sales and half of it from revenue, for example. And I wouldn't want to necessarily rule that out. There's just so many moving parts in the economy at the moment. There's so many moving parts about interest rates and how long they will remain low, and when is the best time for our council to repay certain loans and from what funding sources, that I think it's a bit too early to jump to the conclusion that all of the 13.5 will be repaid from asset sales. I also do note here that whatever we say tonight may get overridden by a future decision from a future council anyway. But at least for this point in time, I feel that the responsible thing to do is to say that part of it, at least part of it, will be from asset sales. The full amount we can't yet commit to due to the current financial, climate. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer is seconder for the amendment. Do you wish to speak to this?
No, thank you.
I might just ask Director Marshall about the surrounding financial issues to this change.
Madam Mayor, I might just comment first, and the Director may wish to add. I think Councillor Nye is right that the decision may be overridden by a future council anyway in terms of funding. In terms of asset sales, council's best endeavours, if those asset sales don't get realised and council takes out a loan, well, we're going to have to repay the loan anyway. So it may be by virtue that asset sales aren't realised that it's repaid out of borrowings. And I think the other issue is that the wording is silent on what quantum is to be repaid by asset sales. So, as the wording stands now, we could sell a parcel of land for $100,000, and that would qualify and meet the council resolution. That part of it is repaid by asset sales. I don't know whether that's the will of the council.
Director Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The intention of the original recommendation was just to confirm council's current approach, which is that this project was to be, well, the portion that's now funded from loans was originally going to be funded from asset sales. So it's just confirming the approach that's in our existing financial plans. So it is, as Councillor Nye says, it is the case that it is a period of low interest rates. At the time in the future when if assets are sold, we would of course review whether or not it was best to repay the loan or take some other approach. The amendment by Councillor Nye, I don't have a strong objection to, but the original recommendation is just confirming the existing plans we have in place.
That being the case, I might just ask Councillor Shatto and Councillor Smith whether they are concerned about the words that Councillor Nye is proposing in his amendment, or again whether they're happy to.
Sorry, do you mean Greenfield and Smith?
No, Councillor Chateau raised the issue in her previous amendment that she wanted the asset sales incorporated. Councillor Smith incorporated that. So now I would like to ask Councillor Shadow and Councillor Smith if they are happy with the wording that Councillor Nye has sought by his amendment.
I do understand what the General Manager has said, that it's somewhat nebulous to say that at least in part it could be repaid from asset sales, because by not defining the quantum, as she said, you could sell something for $10,000 or $100,000 and that would be it, and you'd still have to find the rest. I think what we've always planned for is that it would be repaid from asset sales. And if another council further down the line wants to amend that in some way, that would be up to them. But I think it's important to know that it will be repaid from asset sales.
All right, so you prefer the wording that Councillor Smith has already incorporated.
Yes, I would.
And Councillor Smith, you also prefer to stick with your current wording?
I'm happy with my current wording is because that's the current position of the council today. Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
I think Councillor Nye, his thoughts about that, I can see where it's coming from. But, I think it's better to stick with what we've got.
All right. Are there other speakers on this amendment? There being no further speakers, I will put Councillor Nye's amendment. All those in favour? That is Councillor Nye. Against? Councillors Kay, Clark, Smith, Chateau, Greenfield. Councillor Spencer, are you for or against? Councillor Spencer?
Councillor Spencer is on mute.
I'm not voting.
Abstaining, thank you. Sorry, and I am voting against that amendment.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Kelly's disappeared.
Yes, thank you. We'll make sure that is noted in the minutes.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kelly texted me to advise me that he's having technical issues and he left it at that.
So do we continue, General Manager?
Madam Mayor, we can adjourn for 5 minutes to see if we can get Councillor Kelly back online, would probably be my suggestion.
All right. Could I have a motion to adjourn for 5 minutes, please? Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Shadow. All those in favour? That is unanimous. We will adjourn for 5 minutes, councillors. All right, councillors, the 5-minute adjournment is over and we are back in open session. I believe we were dealing with Councillor Nye's amendment. Councillor Kelly has not been able to rejoin us at this stage, but he has sent messages for council to continue with its business. Therefore, we continue with Councillor Nye's amendment. And if there are no further speakers on that, I will put that amendment. All those in favour? That is Councillor Nye. Against? Councillors Clark, Smith, Greenfield, Kay, Chatto, Anderson and Pettit. Councillor Spencer, I believe, is abstaining. So that is lost. We resume the motion put by Councillor Smith. Are there further speakers on Councillor Smith's?
Madam Mayor, I would like to speak.
You want to speak to your motion now?
Yes. Oh, yes, I would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, again, thank you to all the councillors here this evening in support of this. I do believe that this is something that is going to be very beneficial to Ku-ring-gai as a whole. It's been, I think, every one of us as councillors are constantly getting calls, emails in regards to sports, know where to play sports, and constantly looking for these things. With a lot of discussions with the staff and their emails, it was very helpful in making this decision, in the sense that we're not actually having to go out and physically buy the land. We're actually able to incorporate these courts on the state government's school land, giving basically the people in Ku-ring-gai the opportunity to play indoor basketball, which they haven't been. There's a lot of children that have had the opportunity to, and they're the ones that are in private schools. I believe that this should actually be pushed out to everybody being in public or private. So for those reasons, I'm very happy to have put this forward, and I'm very happy that it's gotten the support that it has tonight. So thank you very much.
The next speaker is Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Everything I've said earlier in support of Councillor Chateau's amendment is repeated here. I'm sorry, I don't have to repeat here. Still stands. It's exactly the same. I'm really very excited. I have been very supportive of this thing being moving forward for the last, I think it was 3.5 years. And very happy to see it moving forward today. Very happy to see this HOA being accepted by this council. I'm very encouraged to see, you know, hopefully, I'm just being presumptuous that the majority of this council will be supporting this tonight to have it move forward to the next step. Hopefully we can see something positive happening this term of council. And then we can see something happening. And I've said earlier, I spoke with Yoel Heeman today, and he just said to me, all we want is a place to play basketball, cheap. We have, not having to pay an arm and a leg to play basketball, and hopefully this would work out. And I encourage all the other councillors here tonight to support this motion. Thank you.
The next speaker is Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to speak in support of this motion. So I note some of the significant changes since we last debated this item a few months ago. Now we've got a 50-year lease with the potential to extend another 10 years. And there aren't any, heebie-jeebies sort of scary things about potentially getting kicked out of the site unless the site is demolished, which is quite unlikely. So it gives us as a council a lot more assurance going forward that if we commit to building this, that we will quite likely have full enjoyment of the site for at least another 50 years, potentially another 60 years. Secondly, I like the aspect that it is you build 2 and you get to use 4 courts, so that's pretty cool. I do believe, and I've stated this a number of times in the past, that there are other lower hanging fruit type of opportunities out there to build similar facilities elsewhere in Ku-ring-gai. But having said that, I'm supportive of sport anywhere in Ku-ring-gai. Our people need these sorts of facilities, so forget those other opportunities for now. This particular opportunity is a reasonable opportunity to take. So I am supportive of this. I'm keen to see this progress in the next few months, and hopefully we will have something similar to enjoy, just like the other building was momentarily earlier on in the month. So yeah, I would just commend this motion to all councillors. Thank you.
Councillor Kay.
Okay, I just wanted to, so I support this motion also and commend anyone that has spoken so far. As you would all be aware, I've been passionate from day one to get this built. Maybe not the express route, but I'm really happy that we're at the stage of a heads of agreement can hopefully be agreed upon tonight. Now, just wanted to make a correction with Councillor Nye. We don't build 2 and get 4. I believe from, and maybe someone could clarify this, that we only hire out 2 of them, and that's where our fees and higher fees come from, and the Department of Education hire out the other 2. So maybe if I could confirm that with Director Watson, if he could clarify that, just for the sake of clarity and correct information, please.
Director Watson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's really a matter that would get sorted out in the deed and lease that comes after this point, but at the moment, our expectation is that we will be managing all 4 courts and charging out all 4 courts.
But that's only our expectation at this point in time.
That has been what's agreed and been on the table to this point in time.
Okay.
I have no reason to expect a different pathway going forward. But as we saw with the Transport for New South Wales negotiations from heads of agreement to deed and lease, there was significant change from one document to the next.
Yeah. Okay, I'd also like to commend Councillor Smith by incorporating that the DA be lodged by the end of the financial year. So I was very determined to have some strict guidelines. So thank you, Councillor Smith, for incorporating that. In agreement with everyone else, basically it's the same thing. It's a community facility that we all need. I also spoke to Yoel, considering he seems to be the name that's come up, and I was quite excited that he told me that his membership had increased to 540 members since those 2 courts have opened, and also there's a Sunday adult seniors class, I believe. So it's definitely got a broad range of community members that will be using these facilities for generations to come. So I'm hoping again, like Councillor Spencer, that we're all on the same page here today and we can move forward and deliver this project. Thank you.
I might just comment as well and certainly endorse Councillor Nye correctly pointing out some of those very significant improvements that have been achieved through negotiation by our staff in the heads of agreement. And those key features that you've noted, Councillor Nye, are very strongly in the interests of our ratepayers. Bearing that in mind, as duly recognised, we should also recognise that there are risks involved still that have not, to this stage, been ideally resolved. Perhaps if I could ask Director Watson if any of those issues that have been pointed out to councillors have any opportunity further in the process to be dealt with in any way that would further comfort council about the risks that we're inherently facing tonight.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the risks are largely pointed out in the report to council. Those risks are further diminished by, for example, changes to the budget that council has been asked to adopt tonight. We would build into this project a bigger contingency than we might ordinarily expect. Council staff, as I said at a briefing last week, would expect to be sitting on a tender review, tender evaluation arrangement when we're selecting final price. I would expect that council staff would sit on a project control group that would be approving variations before they're granted. Ultimately, all of the cost risk is shifted back to council under the heads of agreement, but we would go out of our way to make sure that as little of that cost transfers back to council. We've got the ordinary contingencies plus a margin built in, and all the additional costs that have been flushed out through this process of negotiation have also been built into our cost base. So while I won't say there's no risk, through close management of the process, bearing in mind it's not our tender, it's not our contract, and effectively it's not our project, we're just writing checks, we would be sitting at the table where those things are signed off well in advance. Some of the other elements relating to use and occupation of the building, we would also try and firm those up in council's favour. And it's not that they're not in council's favour at the moment, they're probably, they haven't been adequately or properly explored and documented. So certainly there was some major improvement to the termination by convenience clause, which is definitely now far more satisfactory than it might have been several months back. And some of the other lesser items we would still try to improve council's position through the deed and lease negotiation process.
Thank you, Director. And this project, should we proceed with it this evening, is certainly proving ground, if you like. This is the first project of its kind that we'd be doing with the state government's Department of Education. So I'm sure everybody has the best intentions and desire to make sure that this is a successful project for all parties involved, and that this therefore could be a wonderful example of potential future projects. Councillor Spencer, you're the next speaker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a question through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kay.
Yes.
She said that she hopes that Councillor Spencer and her will be on the same page moving forward. I wonder what that means.
Just a response, that Councillor Spencer mentioned that hopefully today, envisaging that we all vote in favour of the recommendation. That was what I was referring to, Councillor Spencer. So it's just on the same page that we're hoping everyone here votes in a positive direction today for the recommendation.
Right. So how is that got to do with you? It's I was referring to everyone in this chamber.
Yeah. Only because you mentioned foreseeing that people would hopefully vote in that direction, and I also hopefully people will vote in that same direction. That's all there was to it.
Right. I'm just curious. I'm just wondering if that there was something that I said that we make you feel that we're not on the same page.
No, by no means.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I will also point out that Councillor Kelly has been able to rejoin us at this point.
Living in a heritage house with very low quality PowerPoints.
That's all right. Thank you for rejoining us. We're pleased. Councillor Shadow, I think you've got your hand up.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to affirm that I am happy to support Councillor Smith's recommendation. I'm glad that we're able to come to an agreement on this. Also like to support Councillor Nye's very thorough indication of the risks that we have and the risks that have been ameliorated somewhat, particularly the determination for convenience. Just generally, I want to say that we have been talking about an indoor sports centre ever since I've been on council, and possibly even before then. And it's very gratifying to see that finally we have a place, and it's we don't have to pay for the land, I think, as someone else pointed out. And the big project that we began sort of we've begun in the last 12 years has been the Kimball Swimming Centre, the outdoor swimming centre. That was a huge thing. That had been talked about apparently for 20 odd years. And finally, that we brought that to fruition. So it's very gratifying to be part of a second sports complex. And I know how we all value our sport in this area. And although I'm very, very keen on the arts, as I'm sure a number of you are, I'm also very keen on sports. I can remember one of my sons coming home from school many years ago and saying, what we need in Ku-ring-gai is an indoor sports centre for basketball. So it's very good to see that come to fruition. I hope it does. Thank you.
Well, if there are no further speakers, I'll ask Councillor Smith if he wishes to sum up.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I just would like to thank you, everybody that's put the time and effort and would seem somewhat the support behind this for the basketball courts. By the looks of things, we are all on the same page. Again, I would like to also thank the staff. The staff have done an incredible job in the last couple of months when we've given them the opportunity to negotiate these heads of agreement, as what Councillor Nye was alluding to, in putting this forward. That's actually putting together something that is going to be very beneficial. So I put this to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Accordingly, I will put Councillor Smith's motion. All those in favour? That is, I think, Councillor Kelly, is that unanimous from you too?
No, Madam Mayor, I missed so much of the discussion. I think it's unfair for me to vote, I'm afraid.
Understand, yeah. Councillor Kelly. So those in favour are Councillor Nye, Clark, Smith, Greenfield, Kay, Shatto, Spencer, Pettit. Councillor Kelly, are you wishing to vote against, or you're abstaining?
I'll abstain. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Understand.
Things have moved on from the business paper, I think, and yeah.
Understand. Thank you. That is carried. We now move to motions of which due notice has been given. NM1, amendment to the outdoor dining policy. Councillor Kelly, I believe you wish to move your motion.
Well, Madam Mayor, I don't think it's, well, I mean, a lot of things have happened since this was originally tendered to the PA for the council meeting, which was back in October, actually, and I missed it. And it went on to November, and I think their other events have sort of rendered this pretty much ineffective. We covered a lot of the material, I think, in your mayoral minute of November, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And I don't think there's very much in this that's very much different. I think we came at this as not at cross purposes, but you approached it from the mayoral minute perspective, and I'd already had the pipeline with the notice of motion. And I've been working on this for some time with Anne Seaton to develop some of these things along the lines of outdoor dining long before the COVID-19 thing happened. So I think this is probably best withdrawn at this point, because it'll just be wasting everyone's time to discuss something we've already discussed at length.
You can just let it lapse, though. You can't withdraw.
Let it lapse is the better term. Thank you, Councillor Spencer.
Well, or you can be proactive, Councillor Kelly, rather than not seeking a seconder. We could just have a motion to withdraw that can be seconded and voted on.
Sure. Whatever. I have no thoughts one way or the other.
I think it's clearer if we have a motion to withdraw. if you're willing to do so.
Sure.
I
move
can
that,
second. I will second.
I move that we withdraw this NM1 and
second.
let it die a natural death.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Councillors, we move to business without notice subject to clause 9.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice. None. There are no questions with notice. There are no inspections committees. Therefore, there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 8:55 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.